What is going on, everybody? It's KB. Before the episode starts, make sure you go check out StreamerSZN's brand new theme music. That's right. We have full-time, brand new theme music thanks to the newest homie and newest member of the music side of Underground Sports Philadelphia homies. That is Mobley. Stay Volk. His new single is out now. It is linked in the description on YouTube, and you'll be hearing it on audio until we can figure out if we can play it on video on StreamerSZN episodes from here on out. That's our new theme music. Stay Volk. Go download it now wherever you get your music, and go check out the music video on YouTube. But now, let's get into the episode of StreamerSZN.
Philadelphia, baby, you're gonna love it. Best sports fans in the world. Actually, the worst, but that's what makes them the best.
Well, we're back to a 3-show docket. What is going on, fellow streamers? Welcome into another edition of StreamerSZN. This is the exclusive streaming platform, TV and movie podcast on the Underground Sports Philadelphia Podcast Network. It's KB coming at you from Underground Studios, and we've got quite the episode this week. 3 different co-hosts for your boy. Shout out to Dylan. I know he's trying to get better. The old Elvis got him again. And he'll be back hopefully next week. But stepping in for our Last of Us breakdown is my good friend and avid listener of the show, my man Russ.
How's it going? How is everybody?
Welcome to the program. Before we get into The Last of Us, Russ, we just got to run down the business side of things for people. Make sure you guys follow us on the social media platforms. At StreamerSZN, Twitter, Instagram. You can follow me on Twitter at KBIZZLE11 or 311. Instagram is E11. Make sure you guys subscribe to the podcast feed on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. We're there. Leave a 5-star review with your show and movie recommendations. You guys know that's Dylan's line. You leave the recommendation there, it gets added to the list automatically, so go leave a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify, and subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel. That's where you get full video episodes of StreamerSZN and all of the podcasts on our network. You get clips, you get live streams, all the original content video-wise. It's on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@undergroundsportsphiladelphia. We hit 400 subscribers as of this recording. So now it's the road to 500 and beyond. So go subscribe, smash that like button, ring the bell icon, and leave a comment with your show and movie recommendations and your thoughts on anything we talk about on this episode. And of course, guys, go get your merch from our epic merch partners, PHI Apparel Company. There's no doubt in our minds when you guys are rocking your StreamerSZN merch. That's right, StreamerSZN merch. Go get it. You wear it to the movie theater when you're watching your favorite shows and movies from home. You're going to look in tip-top shape. You guys can go to phiapparel.co and use code UNDERGROUND, and you get 10% off any and all orders, and that's how they know you're coming from us. So use that code UNDERGROUND at checkout at phiapparel.co to get 10% off any and all orders. Russ, it's The Last of Us, Episode 7. Fun part about this, you've played the video game, so that helps in that context. You know the game well. As does Dylan, so now we have another resident Last of Us video game player to add to the conversation. But Episode 7, titled Left Behind, for anybody who doesn't know, Russ and I work our day job together, and when I asked Russ if he had watched this, I said, spoiler no context, this episode gives Season 3 finale of Stranger Things vibes, because it's big mall energy.
Big mall energy.
Big, like that mall is massive. Even
Right.
with it being like pillaged and destroyed, that's a huge mall.
Yeah, it was gigantic. It had a whole carousel inside.
Whole carousel, like pinball machines and everything. I was like, this
Yeah.
was when malls were in their heyday.
Yeah. It almost felt like an 80s mall when they walked in. Yeah.
I was like, man, take me back, please. But overall, before we get into the spoiler portion of the episode, what were your thoughts on Episode 7?
I enjoyed it. I liked it was very close to the game. They just changed, little stuff here and there just to make it fit into the story, but I enjoyed it. Yeah, because this is, like I said, this is just DLC in the game, so it was cool that they put it in as a flashback in the show.
Now, are you like, from the video game aspect, is it kind of surprising that they've already jumped that far into like incorporating stuff from the second game, even though this is season 1 and DLC and stuff like that? Because we've kind of touched on it from earlier episodes where like you got to play it up for TV as well. And I think when you make those necessary tweaks to make it play better for television, it works.
It definitely works. Like Joel in the game, Joel falls out a window onto rebar. That's how he gets stabbed. This made more sense. It was way more believable because, like, if a real man gets thrown out of a window, it's gonna, and rebar pierces him. Like, there's no shot. She's gonna save him, and with no medical equipment,
Right.
But in this, like, stabbed in the gut, it's still rough, but you get sewed up, you should be okay. Yeah. Hopefully. Yeah.
So this is everybody's spoiler warning. If you haven't watched episode 7 of The Last of Us yet, pause this episode of the pod. Go sit your fannies down on your couch and watch episode 7, and then come back and do the breakdown with us. But here it is, 3, 2, 1, spoiler warning, and here we go. So we have Ellie tending to Joel with his wound that we saw in the last episode. And Joel demands Ellie abandon him to die. Just leave me here to die. That gave like the scene in Lilo and Stitch where she's like, just leave me here to die, and just turns the record player up. That's the same energy. That was good.
Yeah, and then like one single man tear just down the side, like, just leave me.
And as she begins to walk away, Ellie stops and recalls the events that led up to her becoming infected. Several months earlier in Boston, Ellie is an orphan student at a military boarding school run by the Federal Disaster Response Agency, aka FEDRA. And after Ellie gets into a fight, Captain Kwong, played by Terry Chen, encourages her to follow the rules to eventually become a FEDRA leader. And later that night, Ellie's best friend, Riley Abel, Storm Reed, who we were talking pre-show, Russ, we were blown away. She's a rock star. We need her in more things.
Agreed. Yep. Absolutely killed it.
She was awesome. She sneaks into her room, and Ellie's angry with Riley for joining the Fireflies, a rebel group opposing Fedra, and leaving her alone at the school for weeks. Riley takes Ellie into an abandoned mall, and Ellie is overjoyed to experience an escalator, aka moving stairs. Electric stairs. That was great. A carousel, a photo booth, and an arcade, and also seeing no free ads, Victoria's Secret, as well. That was a very funny scene. That was great.
Yeah. I do have one thing to say about Kwong. I really liked what he said to her. He was like, if Fedra goes, he was like, I understand what people think of us out there, but like, if we go away, everyone's going to starve or kill each other. So like, we might not be like the best, but we're definitely like the devil, like, you don't know what's going to happen when Fireflies take over. I thought that was pretty cool. And it showed that he like knows what's going on.
Yeah. And that was kind of like, you got a peek into somebody sort of kind of caring about Ellie in her past, which was also like one of those things where it's like, does she have any connection to anybody? So that was pretty interesting to kind of get that flashback and see that like there were, people who genuinely like wanted the best for her in the circumstances that they were in.
Yeah, absolutely. Was trying to make sure that she didn't just end up in sewage detail. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Shoveling people's shit.
Yeah.
So then after all the escapades in the mall, Ellie finds Riley's bed and homemade bombs, and she confronts Riley about the Fireflies' violent philosophies, and Riley reveals the Fireflies are moving her to the Atlanta quarantine zone, and she brought Ellie to the mall to say goodbye. And Ellie initially storms out of the mall, but returns to Riley, and the two dance together in Halloween costumes, more Stranger Things vibes. And then Ellie desperately pleads with Riley not to leave. Riley agrees, and then they give a big old smooch right in the mall.
Yep, right in the mall. And what does Ellie say? Like, sorry, and she's like, for what? Like, what are you
Why?
sorry about? Yeah, yeah. Why are you sorry? She just took you on a dope date to the mall that
Right.
no one else can do.
Now is this part? You said most of this was like from the DLC. Was like that whole like sequence in the DLC as well?
I don't think the entire sequence. They changed like little like phrases here and there, or like the way the conversations went. But for the most part, they kept it. They kept the plot true to the
Because a lot
DLC.
of people like compared this episode in a way and likened it to episode 3, where they
Yeah,
changed some things, but it still was like same plot premise for the most part, with Bill and everything that happened in episode 3.
yeah. The thing with three was like they like that was way more backstory than you got on him in the
Right.
game. Like in the game, it was like quick, and then you found stuff out later. In this, you actually played as Ellie, so like this was kind of it had a very similar vibe to it as the DLC. I enjoyed it immensely. I thought it was great.
So then an infected, drawn to the noise, attacks both Ellie and Riley, and Ellie eventually kills it with a nice little stab to the dome. I
That
was
shit was
like,
cool.
okay, that was cool. That was
Yeah,
badass. But is horrified to realize both she and Riley have been bitten, which like I'm like trying to think back, like I don't remember seeing the actual bite happen in the sequence of them fighting.
me either. I because I knew that they both were gonna get bit, but I didn't see it. You're right. Like I didn't see it during the fight at all. It could have only happened like when she got pushed up against the shelving when she
Mm-hmm.
like pulled it off of Ellie. That's probably when she got bit. And then I
Yeah.
guess Ellie when she was trying to like hold it off, that's when she got bit.
And I guess that's for like TV dramatics to like not show it right away. But I was like, when did they get bit? I was like,
Dude, and then did you notice like it welled with blood when she looked at it? Like there was
yeah.
no blood, and then she looks at it and it's just like, wow.
It was like somebody like squeezed one of those scream masks, and then
Yeah,
all the
yeah.
blood rushes down the face. I was like, when did this happen? I was like, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah. I also thought it was cool their reactions to being bit, how they were both
Yes.
like vastly different. I enjoyed that as well.
Which we'll get into for everybody who watches on HBO Max when they do the after show. I love the details that they like bring up in that too, and it just adds more context to what you just watched. So then Riley suggests that they let themselves turn together, arguing that no matter how little time together they have left, it is worth fighting for. And in the present, Ellie recalls Riley's words. She finds a needle and thread and starts to sew Joel's wound. Very like up and down emotional roller coaster type of
Yeah.
episode. You get a lot of emotion in this. You get a lot of just like raw emotion as well. And then like you had mentioned, like the way that they both reacted to getting it. Like Ellie goes on a fucking like bam bam blitzkrieg with a
Yeah, yeah,
baseball
yeah.
bat, smashes everything. And my dumb ass like watching that happen. It's like, Ellie, that stuff doesn't get made anymore. You're ruining like
It's
everything that
true.
like is such valuable like
Yeah.
potential commodities. And then Riley's just sitting in silence and like explains it like she's experienced loss where like Ellie hasn't. So you're seeing like the two total opposite ends of the spectrum of, you know, experiencing like impending doom. And it's
Yeah.
like, hey, let's just make the most of it, or like I'm going to lose my fucking mind.
Dude, she went ham on those display cases. At least she wasn't in the arcade breaking stuff.
Oh,
Then I
that
could
would have
agree with you.
that would have broken
Yeah.
my heart.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
At least it was just like glass, like display casing. But I was like, man,
Destroy the Halloween store, leave the arcade.
right?
Yeah. My
Um,
thing was, so you were thinking that like, oh, we can't make this stuff. My thing was, you just had an infected run in here, and you're just gonna start shattering glass. Like I
that
get your
too.
bit, but like you don't want to get completely just devoured, you know?
Yeah, and I was like, you're making all this noise now. It's like, how many more are
Yeah,
in this place that like Riley thought it was all clear? Like, clearly not. They're
yeah.
living everywhere.
The whole Firefly company thought it was cleared because that was her post. They just like
Hmm.
left her there. They're like, oh, stay with this.
Talk about a shitstorm.
Yeah,
Um,
wild.
Also, we talked about this, I think, either the first or second episode. I want to get your take because you've seen all three of these shows, and we put a poll out on Twitter about this a while ago. What's the creepiest humanoid like villain in a TV show in recent memory. The ones we included were the Clickers and like the Infected, um, the Demogorgon, and then the Moths from Peacemaker.
Ooh, that was a curveball there. I am gonna go Demigorgon. Harder to kill than the Infected,
True.
faster than the Infected, and the the butterflies
That's what it
are
was. The butterflies.
they're sentient. So like
Yeah.
they have a plan. They can be reasoned with. Whereas a Demigorgon is just gonna keep coming until you're
Yeah.
bunch.
The Clickers are just so fucking gross.
Yeah, 100%. But still, like you got a gun, you got fire, you got an axe. You're a little better off than if you have those things against a Demigorgon. That's my thought, anyway. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
It is pretty funny that you can kind of also like compare those three and line them up with Ed, Ed, and Eddie. Like the Demogorgon is Eddie.
Yeah,
The butterflies are Double D, and then the Clickers are just Ed.
I think I brought Ed, Ed, and Eddie up at work today too.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think as of like the last like year or so, those are the three like grossest and like creepiest like humanoid beings that we've seen on TV.
100%. Yeah, on TV most certainly.
Yeah, and then like movie wise, like zombie Doctor Strange was pretty gross. And the
Yeah.
crazy part is the prosthetic artist is the same person for Zombie Strange, the Clickers, the Demogorgons.
No shit. I didn't know that.
And I think he also worked on the King from House of the Dragon when he got like progressively older and everything.
And like gangrenous. Yeah. Yeah.
Also worked on him, which is like, geez, this prosthetic artist is having like
Killing
the
it.
career like renaissance right now.
Yeah. He's gonna be they're gonna look at his portfolio in the future and just be like, oh yeah, we're hiring you.
That's a Hall of Fame career already,
Yeah.
and that's in like the
Right.
last like what calendar year, pretty much.
Essentially, yeah. If
It's
you want to put into
insane.
production, 2 years, but like still.
It's absurd. So yeah, I mean, I love the after show as well. We were bringing
Me
that
too.
up too. Like they just add so much more underlying value, and I think it's also like very cool for the people like myself who have never played the video game to kind of just get the brain fodder from, you know, everybody working on the show and behind the scenes type of stuff and what goes into the decision making that they have. They just add so much. So like if you're not watching on HBO Max with the after show, do yourself a favor and like watch that. You know, go back, watch all of them, and then from here on out, these last 2 episodes, watch that after the show because it adds so much more value to
A
the
lot.
episode.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Any HBO show, watch the after. Like it's just necessary. Westworld, if you watch that, watch the afters. They're great.
Yeah, House of
Pretty
the
much
Dragon
anything.
did it.
Yeah.
Game of Thrones, I'm sure, did it.
Yep.
So definitely recommend watching those. The ratings on this show just continue to blow my mind. On linear television, the first night of episode 7, it had 1.083 million viewers.
That was night 0. That was the night it came out.
And that's on linear television. That's on like cable.
Just like 9 o'clock Sunday. Wow. Okay.
1.083 million viewers on the first night with a 0.37 rating share. And according to several viewers, this is pretty interesting. Ellie and Riley's kiss was censored on OSN Plus in the MENA region, which is Middle East and North Africa. No, not surprised there. But,
yeah, I was just gonna say that completely makes sense, but it is what it is.
But yeah, 1.083 million viewers on linear
That's
TV.
crazy.
That's nuts. And who knows, you know, what the HBO Max numbers were for people watching on streaming and how much that
that's
adds
nuts.
into it. Like, that's just crazy.
But hold on. If they censored that in this episode, did they just not play episode 3? Like, does
Episode 3
episode
just
3
did not air.
just didn't air? There is no such thing.
It
Okay.
stopped as soon as they found Homeboy in the ditch.
Yeah, it
That
just
was
cut.
the
It's
episode,
the
and
end
then
of
it goes right to the after show.
Wow. Okay.
So the critical response on this episode, Rotten Tomatoes has an approval rating of 96% based on 24 reviews with an average rating of 8.5 out of 10. The website's critical consensus called it a, quote, heartbreaking duet between Bella Ramsey and Storm Reed. Several critics praised the visuals of the mall, and Den Geek's Bernard Boo enjoyed the blend of artificiality and romance, and Push Square's Aaron Bain applauded its similarities to the game. And then Total Film's Bradley Russell found the opening sequence ethereal, mirroring Joel's fading consciousness. And then the AV Club's David Coate lauded the first sequence as the best close combat scene in the series to date. And this episode's use of music was very well received.
Yeah, I agree with most of that. Yeah,
I thought
I
the
like
music was fantastic.
Yeah, 100%. Definitely put you in it when when they're playing in the arcade, or like when she throws the music on and just starts dancing. That was good. Also, the quick cut to she's standing at the door and then she's running, listening to music. That was good.
Yeah, it was very when she's running in the flashback in the gym and everything, and the music playing that gets knocked off of her. Again, not to make too many Stranger Things comparisons, but they did the same thing with Max. Like, I love that it's very like gimmicky, but it's a good gimmick, and I like that. Like, use the music and your props to your advantage, and I think they did a very good job with that. So I love that kind of shit. Like, when that happens, I'm like, oh yes.
Yeah, I found this episode very immersive. I liked it. What was I gonna say? I liked a lot of the quotes in this too. Like in the beginning, Kwong, what he said to her, like, "Hey, they're either gonna starve or kill each other." And then what Riley says to Ellie at the end, like, we have a couple options. Like, why don't we just see what happens, make it last while it can? It's great.
And she was like, "Nah, I hate that option." And just jumped to the very next one. That was great.
Dude. That was dark. Yeah. Option 1. Nah, I don't like option 1. Yeah.
That was very, very good. So Russ, as we do on this show, we grade each episode scale of 1 to 10. You can give a rookie score, which is just a flat number, or give an experienced score with a decimal in there just to play the numbies there. I recorded our Poker Face segment with Christian earlier in the week. He gave this episode of The Last of Us a 9 out of 10. So a bit of a rookie score, but he's been crushing with the 9s pretty much. He made a prediction before this show started, preseason for the show, that this show could go down as one of the best TV shows of all time. And it's living up to that hype. So, Russ, your score for The Last of Us episode 7.
I'm going to give it a 7.8 because, to me, 5 was like an 8.5 to a 9. You know what I mean? So I'm going to judge this one. It's like a 7.5.
I like this one. Like I said, I think the use of music was great. I thought the just like production quality of this episode was awesome. And just good, like, more gut-wrenching plot, to
oh my God.
continue on with everything is just so good.
The show is just like recorded depression. That's what it feels like. Yeah, because at the end of every episode, your heart just is shattered. It's just over.
So I think I'm gonna stick with our trend too. I'm gonna give it a 9.1, which the 3 scores tallied up. That's a 25.9. You divide that by 3 for the people with quick math at home. That adds up to an 8.6 and a whole bunch of 3s, which we'll put an asterisk next to it once we get Dylan's score. We'll get a full-blown aggregate there, but still, to be in the 8.6s at this point in the season is crazy, and it's certainly going down as a Hall of Fame show.
Yeah, well, because with HBO's formula, the episode before the season finale is usually a lull because it's like the calm before the storm.
Mm-hmm.
Or opposite, it's like really intense and then lull at the end, lull before. So we'll see. We'll see what's going on.
Penultimate episode next week. Stick around. We are going to dive headfirst into the show that started this format of StreamerSZN up next. The Mandalorian Season 3 is here, and we're going to be joined by another co-host for this week, so stick around, stay here. We're not going anywhere, but we'll be... And we're back. And we're back to our roots. The show that started this format of StreamerSZN is back. It feels like it's been ages since we've traveled back to the world of The Mandalorian. Season 3 is here. We're ready to break down episode 1. And joining me is now recurring guest. Joined us earlier, or I should say later in 2022 for House of the Dragon. He's a big Mando fan, and as we mentioned at the top of the show, Dylan dealing with that Elvis type of situation, so hopefully he'll be back next week. But joining us for Mando Episode 1, the one and only Keith Williams.
Glad to be back. Ready to fill in for Dylan. I mean, hopefully he doesn't end it out like Elvis, and I can...
Hopefully there's no peanut butter and banana sandwiches involved. The Mandalorian is back. It truly feels like it's been forever since we've had true Mandalorian, not the Book of Boba Mandalorian Fett. But it is finally back, and obviously it was kind of put on ice a little bit because this is the year of Pedro Pascal. Like, he's got The Last of Us, and now he's got The Mandalorian all at once. So he is in his golden age right now. But that's why it took a little bit longer for this season to come out, since the last season we got. Plus, we got a little sprinkled teaser there with the Book of Boba Fett.
Yes, we did.
Early 2022. So we're back full-fledged with The Mandalorian. Episode 1, Chapter 17, The Apostate. Keith, obviously, before we get into the spoiler section of the episode, what were your overall thoughts on Season 3, Episode 1?
I was feeling it. I thought it was very well written. I thought they gave a good... I think it helped out a lot of people who didn't watch Book of Boba Fett or, like, leading up. I felt like it did help out a lot as far as, like, giving little fillers in. Also, I think it set up a lot of stuff for the future too. Like, like I genuinely watched and like, what's Homegirl doing at the end? Like, is she secretly plotting? Like, why did you give them the coordinates, but then at the end say bye? Like, like what's going on there? Like, are you really with it still, or are you actually an enemy now? I think there was a lot that good things to come. That's really what I came away with it.
I felt like it gave you a lot. Like the previewed runtime was 37 minutes, but you know how Disney Plus always kind of dupes you a little bit because they include how long the credits run. So it's kind of like a 34, 35-minute episode. But they packed a lot of information into it. And like you said, like for the people that didn't watch the Book of Boba Fett, which we 100%, you should go watch it because there's a lot to take away from some of the episodes in there. And if you didn't listen to our Book of Boba Fett episodes, go listen to those as well. But it sets up a lot of what goes on in this episode. But like, we were talking pre-show, like there's stuff that they put in there. It's like, I've heard this conversation before, and it's because it was in the Book of Boba Fett. But a lot of, I think, just like groundwork was set in this episode alone for what we're going to get throughout the entire season, which is really nice for an episode 1 to kind of be like, here's where things are going to kind of go, and you don't know what some of the, corkscrews and stuff along the way will be, but here's a basis of what's going to happen. Also was not expecting Homeboy to come back with a vengeance the way that he did towards the end of the episode. That was a wild, talk about wild corkscrew twist and turn. We'll get into that in just a minute. But this segment of StreamerSZN is brought to you by our good friends over at Kenwood Beer. It's the official beer of Underground Sports Philadelphia, and it's Dylan's beverage of choice. So shout out to the boy when he is watching his favorite shows and movies. You guys can go to kenwoodbeer.com and use that all new and improved Kenny tracker to see who's got Kenwood Beer on tap in the Philadelphia area. You can get it in your local liquor store if you're in the Philly area. And if you live in Eastern Pennsylvania, you can also get it at your local Home Goods. So go to kenwoodbeer.com. Use that Kenny tracker. You got to be 21 or older to do so. And, of course, please drink responsibly. This is everybody's spoiler warning. If you have not watched The Mandalorian, Season 3, Episode 1, Chapter 17, however you want to break it down, this is your spoiler warning. 3, 2, 1, here we go. So on an unknown planet, the Armorer is making a blue Mandalorian helmet, and I don't know if you noticed it when you were watching too. The way that like liquid just kind of glowed and everything, it was very like religious, spiritual, like whole situation.
Sacred. Yeah, sacred. Yeah,
and like the way that they like framed everything camera wise and shot it, it's like you don't know exactly where they're at, and it's like this feels very culty.
Yeah, that's 100%, man. That's the vibe I came away with. That whole scene. I'm like, man, this really feels like we're in somebody's culty church, and
especially with the Mythosaur skull being like positioned the way it was. I was like,
yeah,
that kind of looks like a crucifix.
What are we doing?
What's going on here?
Yeah, for sure.
She brings the helmet to a Mandalorian initiation ceremony by a riverbank, and during the initiation ceremony, a youth named Ragnar, which I don't remember. I did watch this episode with subtitles on just to see if there was anything to pick up from. I didn't remember seeing his name, but his name is Ragnar. He swears the creed before donning the helmet. But before we started recording, we noticed that when he's saying the creed and everything,
yes,
and before they can complete the ceremony, an alligator-like creature attacks the Mandalorian covert, and that happens right before young Ragnar can say that he'll never take his helmet off.
Yep.
I think that is such it's not an Easter egg, but it's like one of those things that like you got to keep in the back of your mind if this kid pops up again. Like, is he going to look at Mando as like a pariah, as like his Jesus because he took his helmet off? Like, that's my guy. Like, he did it, so I can do it. Like, I never swore to it.
I never
like,
technically donned it. Yeah.
And it's like, how much of a like influence is that on him because he is so impressionable at a young age? Like, how much does that influence him? We don't know his like relation, if he has like any relation to any of the other Mandalorian that were in that, proceeding going on. But they did seem like they were like panning to Paz Vizsla a lot. So I don't know if there's any connection there.
Yeah.
Especially with the blue helmet and everything as well. Also very cool that his hair hung out of his helmet. I was like, oh, that's different for
I thought that was neat.
Yeah. So the Armorer takes Ragnar to safety. I was like, oh, he looks like Clay Matthews.
Yeah. It was
hair hanging out of the helmet, free flowing.
Yeah. For Calavala. Yeah.
So the Armorer takes Ragnar to safety while Paz Vizsla leads the defense of the covert, which if anybody doesn't know, if you're new to The Mandalorian or kind of don't get into the weeds, Paz Vizsla is played by Jon Favreau, who is the director, obviously, of The Mandalorian, which is very fun. So the creature eats a few of the Mandalorians. R.I.P. They just killed the club. And the Mandalorians attempt to plant explosives. They try to plant explosives on the monster, but are unable to pierce through its thick hide. And they attempt to pull it down with grappling cables, but are no match for the creature's vast size and strength. Ragnar attempts to charge at the creature's maw, but Vizsla pushes him aside and fires blaster bolts at the creature. And then, of course, who comes to save the day? None other than the apostate. And how embarrassing is that for the Mandalorian covert that, you know, your guy who you've kind of banished, it's like, you're no good. He's got to come save your ass. Din Djarin arrives in that N1 Starfighter, which is such a badass ship that, again, go see how he got that in the Book of Boba Fett.
Yes, sir.
And he arrives with Grogu and fires torpedoes into the creature's side, killing the creature. I have to go back and just like look through all of like the creature kills that Mando has, because there's been some giant ass monsters that this man has just single-handedly taken down over the course of 3 seasons.
Yes. You know what?
Him
It's
and
kind
Grogu.
of yes. It's like how you have your pop sockets. Like he literally should have just an entire catalog of just this. These are all of mine.
It's like when
I've taken each.
It's like when Ohio State, like how they give the stickers on their helmets.
Yes.
Like Mando's just gotta have the Buckeye sticker for every like creature
every
kill.
single one. Yeah.
So after landing his ship, Mando visits the armorer in her cave and asks how he can redeem himself. This was kind of like that rehashing of stuff we saw in those few episodes of the Book of Boba Fett. The armorer tells Mando that he's no longer a Mandalorian since he willingly removed his helmet. Mando reminds her that the creed speaks about redemption. The armorer believes that Djarin cannot be redeemed since she believes that the mines and living waters were destroyed during the Great Purge of Mandalore, which, if you want more context on that, go watch the Clone Wars animated series. They do a great job like portraying everything that happens with that and gives you a lot of backstory on like Mandalorian culture. It's not necessary per se viewing, but it heightens your viewing experience for these shows, so I highly recommend it. Mando shows him a green Mandalorian inscription, which he obtained from a Jawa who acquired it from someone who visited Mandalore. Who was that? That I don't remember who that is, if that has been shown to us or not. I don't truly remember, but that's an interesting thing to like hold on to. It's like, okay, how the hell did a Jawa get this? And who did he get it from?
Yes.
So the armorer responds that the inscription proves that Mandalore's entire surface has been crystallized by fusion rays, and Djarin believes that the traveler managed to reach the mines of Mandalore, and Mando seeks to redeem himself by traveling to Mandalore and proving that the mines and living waters do exist. The armorer accepts his quest and says that this is the way. Grogu coos and watches with interest. And then we're traveling back to Navarro at this point, and while traveling through hyperspace, Grogu watches the hyperspace tunnel with interest and observes several large shapes traveling alongside them. Kind of look like whale creatures, which Eric Voss from New Rockstars does a phenomenal breakdown of this episode. Highly recommend going and watching that on YouTube on the New Rockstars channel. Those like whale-like creatures are from Star Wars Rebels, which... if you remember from season 2 of The Mandalorian, when Ahsoka is battling in like that like ninja type situation, like that dojo type of thing, and she's like, "Where's Thrawn?" That part comes from stuff from Rebels where Thrawn and Ezra got like thrown into hyperspace and like outside of like the vortex and everything, and those whales are like the things that are supposed to be like carrying them to wherever they may be. All of the showrunners and stuff for The Mandalorian, whenever anybody asks about Thrawn and Ezra and all that, it's like, that'll come in Ahsoka. So it's like, that's a little tease and a little like crumb for the Ahsoka series. Which is very exciting because we don't necessarily know when that's coming out. We just know that it's a confirmed thing.
It's coming.
Like shooting it and everything. But it's nice to have those little like crumbs thrown in there throughout this to kind of get you prepped for what is to come. And that kind of just tells you that The Mandalorian's going to tie into the Ahsoka series. We're probably going to see Mando and Grogu in that show.
No, for sure.
So then Mando flies the N1 starfighter to Navarro, where he's greeted by air traffic control, and he tells them that he has come to visit an old friend. And Mando walks through the streets of Navarro City while Grogu rides in his brand new repulsor lift cradle. That thing is shining. That boy got that brand new like Cadillac style of repulsor craft. And Mando notices that the streets are cleaner and safer. droids and beings of different species roam through the streets, and then we have those Kowakian monkey lizards watching from the trees. Those things are terrifying, and if you
Yes,
watch like
sir.
the original Star Wars movies, though, they're in those as well, and those stop motion puppets of those are even more like nightmare fuel-esque. So seeing those again and them being in trees nonetheless was like it sends shivers down my spine. I was like,
Shivers.
ugh.
Yeah. No,
Uh,
when I first
no, good.
no when I first seen the scene, I was like, these guys got their stimulus checks. I was like, what is
That 401k just hit.
Yeah, it just hit tax season, man. I was like, geez, everybody's clean. And I like the way like them was like everything looks completely different. And I remember he was like, well, we've cleaned up. You know, it's like you have.
Yeah,
you have.
You certainly have.
Yeah.
So as the two pass the statue of IG-11, Mando reminds Grogu of his old droid friend, and then Jaren greets Grief Karga, who has become Navarro's newest High Magistrate. And inside his office, Karga tells Mando that Navarro has become an official trade spur of the Hydean Way, and Karga tells him that Navarro has been undergoing a construction boom due to the mining in the system's asteroid field, and Grief Karga offers Mando and Grogu a parcel of land to settle in the outskirts of the city, and is just like, why don't you just hang up this bounty hunting stuff and call it a day? You know, just retire, take off that helmet again, and just relax by the hot springs.
Yeah,
just relax.
Take up your 10 acres of land and just
kick your feet up. You know, get a nice cold drink. So then Mando replies that he's not ready to settle down since his quest is not over and he has become an apostate. Karga tries to reassure Mando he will fit in as landed aristocracy, and a protocol droid informs Karga that several pirates led by Nikto Vane, great name, great villain space pirate name, have arrived in the town courtyard, and Vane invites Karga for a drink, but Karga tells them that the pub has now become a school run by a protocol droid teacher. Shout out to Dylan, because in Mandalorian Season 2, Episode 2, he predicted that they were going to go to a school, and nonetheless, they went to a school. So whenever Mandalorian brings up a school, it's just very funny. Plus, it's like, cut me a break. You want to drink at a school? There's kids on the premises. Get a grip.
Yeah.
So, however, Vane insists on drinking at the school due to its history as a bar, and Karga refuses to back down, prompting Vane to remind Karga that he paid them for murder and mayhem inside the former bar, and accuses Karga of being soft. Karga challenges Vane to a gunfight, and before Vane can reach for his holster, Karga shoots the blaster out of his hand, and Karga tells Vane to inform Captain Gorian Shard that Navarro is no longer friendly to pirates. He warns Vane to leave, and when Vane's fellow pirates reach for their weapons, Mando shoots them down, and Karga warns Vane to leave the pirate, and the pirates flee. And when Mando questions his decision to spare Vane, Karga says that Vane will take home the message that Navarro is a respectable place now. Now, the thing, too, that I was thinking about as I was watching this episode is like, you know, Grief Karga is very much like a man of the people, and if you're trying to keep things even keel, why is he all dressed up the way that he is? It makes you think, like, where's all this money coming from truly?
Yeah.
Like, something's a little fishy.
Yeah. Yeah, he's taking handouts from someone.
Yeah.
Who?
And it's like, who could it be?
He was very, he was very high class the way he looked, and he
looked like he was getting ready to go to the Met Gala.
Yeah. Yeah. Facts.
So that's something to keep in mind too. I think, you know, it might be an over speculation, but something tells me something's a little fishy up going on Navarro.
Yeah.
So while service droids remove the fallen pirates, Karga tells Mando that he needs a new marshal. He explains that Cara Dune, which I was very surprised that they name dropped Cara Dune, because that is obviously Gina Carano's character, who has not been in the show since season 1 due to all of her off-show and online happenings. That was very surprising that they like name dropped the character, in my opinion.
And they gave her a promotion.
Yeah. It was kind of, you know, in charge of Moff Gideon getting off plane. She was recruited by the New Republic Special Forces after she captured Moff Gideon, who was sent to a New Republic war tribunal. And Mando is reluctant to become Karga's new marshal and suggests asking the New Republic to send one. And Karga responds that he is unwilling to bow down to another far-off bureaucracy. I just butchered that word because I can't read. Karga dreams of making Navarro the first truly independent trade anchor in the sector, and Mando declines the offer since he has a pressing matter to attend to.
So I got business to do.
Hey, I'm a man of business. I'm an international businessman. So Grief Karga asks what services he can provide, and Mando requests that he get back the late great IG-11 since he needs a droid that he can trust to help him explore Mandalore. And Grief Karga responds that the statue is made out of a few parts of IG-11 that they salvaged following his self-destruction and that didn't get tarnished away in the lava ocean. I was like, yeah, Mando, you were there. You saw all of that happen. Like,
you watched.
He doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
So Karga offers Mando other droids, but Djarin convinces Karga to let him try to rebuild IG-11. And in a workshop, Mando connects Karga's mechanical body to power and manages to revive the droid. However, Mando manages to restore IG-11's memories to the time when he wanted to terminate Grogu.
Yeah.
Full-blown Terminator mode.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God. The legless, and that was the creepier part. It was just like torso up, so it was like no legs crawling around.
Yeah.
Like his head spins like an owl. I was like, this is terrifying.
Like an owl. Yeah.
So the legless IG-11 lunges at Mando and Grogu. Djarin grabs Grogu and passes him to Karga before shooting at IG-11, and a bust of Karga falls on IG-11's head. Later, Karga invites Djarin to bring the deactivated IG-11 to several Anzellan droid smiths, whom he describes as some of the best in the galaxy. And those Anzellan droid smiths are the species known as, Babu Frick from the sequel Star Wars movies. And Babu Frick is one of the funniest fucking characters in all of television, all of movies. The way he just hits a hey, like he is just like an Italian mechanic, and it's great. So I'm very excited. Babu Frick is expected to make an appearance in this season too, which is very exciting. So, however, the Anzellans are unable to repair IG-11's memory circuit due to its rarity, and they recommend buying a new droid. It's like, just buy a new one. You just get a new one.
But he doesn't want a new one. He wants that one.
Just buy a new droid. What do you mean? So Mando offers to help the Anzellans find a new part, which they accept, and Grogu hugs one of the diminutive Anzellan mechanics, promoting the Anzellan, and Djarin to tell him not to squeeze him too hard. He's not a toy. Mando
said,
and Grogu,
I may be small, but I'm not a teddy bear.
They prepare to leave on their N1 starfighter to find a memory circuit for IG-11, and Grief Karga wishes them safe travels. While traveling through space above Navarro, Mando and Grogu find out that there's more to being a Mandalorian than fighting. He adds that navigating is useful since no one ever knows where one is heading next, and Mando shows Grogu a hyperspace map and tells him that he can determine his range by looking at the fuel gauge, and the ship's proximity alert rings, warning Mando about the presence of pirate starfighters. Vane seeks to avenge the deaths of 4 of his brothers and remind Mando that they serve the pirate king, King Gorian Shard. And Mando responds that Shard should stick to hijacking and ransoming before pulling the accelerator, which was just such a badass move.
Yeah. Yes.
Mando leads the pirate starfighters on a chase through the asteroid field as well, and just like he was just like pretty much flipped them the double bird. It was like,
yeah. He was like, "You my dust gun."
One of the pirate ships crashes into an asteroid, but the others continue their chase, and Mando gains the upper hand and runs circles around his pursuers, shooting several starfighters down.
Awesome.
Yes, such a cool scene. Like that's one of the cool parts about the Mandalorian is like they give you that like more than just like bare bones of like outer space like combat almost, and it's just so cool.
Yeah, no, that was great.
So then, yeah, so one of the prize ships crashed into a mining platform on an asteroid, and despite their losses, Vane manages to drive Mando's starfighter towards Captain Shard's warship. Pirate gunners aim their weapons at Mando's N1 starfighter, and then Shard warns Mando that he has guns trained on him, and Mando responds that he has no quarrel with him, but Shard reminds Mando that he has just destroyed 4 of his starfighters. Shard demands that Mando surrender in return for sparing his life, and Mando tells Grogu to never trust a pirate before pushing the accelerator. Put that on a shirt. Never trust a pirate.
Yeah.
Pushing the
would be a dope
accelerator
slogan.
causes the N1 starfighter to shoot past the bridge of Shard's warship, and Shard growls in rage. The way that Shard looked too, like just such a cool, like
Yeah.
aesthetically pleasing character.
Yes. Yes.
And it's like, this guy's a scumbag, but he looks really cool. And I don't
Yeah.
think,
But
I don't know how you feel. I don't think that's the last we've seen of him.
no.
I think he'll
he
pop
came
up
off
again.
like somebody that could be like not reoccurring, but somebody who could come up in the right point in time where it's like, ah, crap, we still have to deal with you. Like, like I can definitely see him showing back up in an episode or two.
Yeah, like he's like one of those ancillary villains that's not like massive to the overarching story, but he's going to show up to like derail shit.
Yeah, definitely. He may not be Plankton, but he's definitely going to be one of the ones that, you look around and like, ah, here he is. And now like not the main character, but you have to get through him. And then he's like kind of like a nuisance that's always
Yes.
there. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
So Mando takes Grogu to Calavala, another planet with within the Mandalore system, and Mando lands their starfighter at a Mandalorian castle, which looks so fucking cool. Like,
Yeah.
give me that castle all
Yeah.
day, every day.
Yeah.
It looked straight out of like futuristic Game of Thrones.
Yes. And I loved it.
So upon disembarking, he and Grogu are greeted by a blue droid, and the two walk through the castle hallway into a throne room where they are greeted by a forlorn Bo-Katan Kryze, who has abandoned her plans to retake Mandalore, which kind of surprised me. Like,
Yeah.
the way that the end of Season 2 of The Mandalorian ended, it felt like Mando and Bo-Katan were, like, headed for full-blown,
Yeah.
like, fisticuffs when
Yeah.
this season started, but
Yeah.
it's like, okay, she's kind
Now
of
all of a
given up,
sudden
but
she's-
why?
Yep. Yeah.
So she says without the Darksaber, her forces melted away, and Bo-Katan mentions that her fleet have reverted to being mercenaries, and Bo-Katan asks Mando if he has the Darksaber, and when Mando confirms that this is the case, which we all know if you watch the Book of Boba Fett,
Yeah.
she tells him to use it to lead the people. Mando asks Kryze if she has given up her plan to retake Mandalore, and Kryze responds that Mando's Children of the Watch, shout out, great podcast, shout out to Children of the Watch, go give them a listen for sure. The cult gave up on Mandalore before the Purge, and she asked Mando where he was during the Purge, and Kryze says that the Children of the Watch and other factions divided their people. She tells Mando to go home because there's nothing left. And Mando tells Kryze that he intends to return to Mandalore in order to bathe in the living waters and be forgiven for his transgressions. And Bo-Katan thinks that Mando is foolish and responds that there is nothing magical about the mines of Mandalore. She says they supplied Beskar ore to their ancestors, and the rest is superstition. When Kryze says that Mandalore has been poisoned, plundered, and polluted, Mando reminds her that she said that curse was a lie and tells her to make up her mind. Bo-Katan tells Mando that the mines are located beneath the Civic Center in Sundari, and Mando vows to find out whether Mandalore has truly been poisoned. And then Bo-Katan hits Mando with a goodbye, Din Djarin. And I was like, this is a little
What do you mean,
ominous.
brother? Yeah.
Literally, like,
Yeah.
what do you mean
Yeah.
goodbye?
Yeah.
Like we said, they packed so much into like a 32
it.
minute episode of like just so many questions bouncing around in your heads. I think the biggest takeaway from this is like Bo-Katan is not the type of character, if you've watched Clone Wars, if you watch Rebels, if you watch season 2 of The Mandalorian, she's not the type that's just like gonna keel over and quit.
Yeah, just like, oh, you can have it. Yeah.
And it's like, just because you don't have one thing, like you're gonna quit. I don't think so. Something's fishy about that.
Yeah.
And then, like we mentioned earlier, something's very fishy about Grief Karga being like very flamboyant and like out with all of this
Yes.
jewelry and like new clothes and everything. Like, where's this money coming from?
Yeah.
How did they get a construction boom like in the city and everything?
Yeah. Everybody's bowling.
Yeah, like there's a
Yeah.
lot that's like, what is going on?
Yeah.
And I like that like this episode leaves you with so many unanswered questions too. For it being episode
Definitely
1,
does.
it's like that's what you want. You don't want all your questions answered right away because then it's like, what's the
No.
point of watching everything else?
The
So
whole,
it's
yeah,
nice
yeah.
to have so many questions just brewing for another week to kind of wait and see what happens.
Yeah.
And I agree with you what you said at the top. Like this episode was so well written, like it flowed very well.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
really enjoyed this episode for it being a premiere.
Yeah, and you know what's crazy? Like, even though it was only 30, a little over 30 minutes, like, it didn't feel rushed. Like, I felt like I left with a clear understanding of what's happening. But also being like, man, like, there's cliffhangers on every turn. Like, they introduced so much stuff to us that, like, we have plenty to eat for the rest of the season. Like, and I just can't wait till that happens.
Yeah, and I mean,
But,
like,
yeah.
the amount of, like, just like we said, like, there's different trails of crumbs for different, like, plot lines,
Yeah.
too, which is very
Yeah.
exciting. And, like, we all know how the Book of Boba Fett ended. Who's to
Yes.
say, like, that whole infantry group of Boba Fett,
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
Fennec Shand, of Black Chrysanthemum, like, do they pop up this season?
Yeah, I was going to say,
If
do they have a
we go
cameo?
to some
Yeah.
sort of war, like, Mando's going to need people to pop out for
All
him,
the
just
people,
like he
yep.
popped out for those people.
Yep.
So it's like,
Yep.
where do they
very
kind of
true.
fit into this puzzle as well? That was something I was thinking about today as I was getting ready for the show. Like, where do those characters fit in? Because they are in this,
Yeah,
for
that
lack
is
of a better
true.
term, Mandoverse. Like,
Yeah.
they're key players, as well as Timothy Oliphant's character, who initially we
Yeah.
saw with the Boba Fett armor. He's still alive, and
Yes. Yes.
how does
Yeah.
that play
No,
in?
that's
And I
facts.
think everyone agrees too that at the end, when it seemed like Cad Bane was dead, that's such a massive character in the Clone Wars and Rebels, for that matter. Like, and he shows up again in the Bad Batch. Like, there's no way you bring in a
Yeah.
character of that stature and like that,
And
like,
not use it.
cult fandom and just kill him
Yeah.
off. He's
Yeah,
totally
you would
still
use him.
alive.
Yeah.
So where does he come into play? He's one of those people that pops up all the time, kind of
All
like a
the
pirate,
time.
but more elevated because he's a mongrel scumbag son of a bitch. And the more that he pops up, it's like, okay, they're deterring from the task at hand, but now
Yeah.
you got to deal with Cad Bane.
Yep.
So I'm wondering if he shows up again and silences all the doubters that, he wasn't really
Who
dead.
he is. Yes, exactly. No, you are so right about that, actually. It's just facts.
It's so much to take away, and it's all because we got like 2.5 episodes of The Mandalorian in the Book of Boba Fett, which is like,
Yeah.
loved it, and it's like, okay, how does this all play into the
Yeah.
grand scheme?
How can
and
we
the
get this
plot
back
of all
in?
of this?
Yeah.
Like, how do you tie
No.
up those loose ends and everything, and like, where does the overarching like ruling of all of the happenings of the Book of Boba Fett play into
Play
the
into
Mandalorian now?
And you make a very valid point. Because you said that like Mando always shows up for everybody.
Mhm.
Like whether it's somebody that's light years away or whatever, he shows up no matter what. Even when it's people that his own people who turn him away and nobody wanted him there. What happens? They're literally being eaten, and Mando shows up and takes care of them. So like when Mando needs them, when are those guys going to show up, and how do they show up? What takes place? And you're right, that actually is a really good point.
Yeah, and this episode was directed by Rick Famuyiwa, who will also be directing the penultimate episode, so episode 7, and the finale. So I think that's always something I
That's
look
actually
at,
smart,
is like,
yeah.
who does the premiere, and then is it the same person for the ending?
For
I
the
like
ending.
that is the case. I can already tell everybody episode 6 is going to be a big Bo-Katan episode, because it's directed by Bryce Dallas Howard, who I think most Mandalorian fans agree Bryce Dallas Howard has directed some of, if not the best episodes of The Mandalorian, and she directed episode 3 of season 2 when Bo-Katan made her first appearance in live action. So I feel like that's going to be a heavy Bo-Katan influenced episode, which is going to be fun. And this is very fun. So we have the directors for every episode now. So next week's episode will be directed by Rachel Morrison. Pulling up what she is known for here. Lee Isaac Chung is directing episode 3. I'll pull up what he has worked on too, because I believe those two are brand new directors to The Mandalorian as a whole. Episode 4 is directed by Carl Weathers, also known Grief Karga. And that episode, very interesting, written by Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni. That's a huge one for everybody at home who may not know who Dave Filoni is. Essential equivalent, he is the Kevin Feige of the Star Wars universe right now. Like, everything you're seeing happening. So Dave Filoni worked on the Clone Wars and Rebels, and like those are like his babies. Like anything that has those types of influences, he's part of it. So him being part of episode 4, something from either Rebels or Clone Wars is going to tie into that episode, which is super exciting. Peter Ramsey is directing episode 5. He is known for Rise of the Guardians from 2012 from DreamWorks. That's one of the projects he's worked on. Like I mentioned, episode 6 is Bryce Dallas Howard, and then 7 and 8 are Rick Famuyiwa, but episode 7 also written by Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni. So episode 7's also going to have some banger aspects to it involving the animated series. Rachel Morrison, for some of the projects that she has worked on, just to give everybody a background here, her filmography includes 2017's Mudbound. She also worked on the original Black Panther with Ryan Coogler. So that's exciting. Kind of has that action background. She worked on Cake in 2014, Dope in 2015 with Rick Famuyiwa.
Solid.
She's got a nice little lineup of filmography. She's also worked side by side on a lot of things with Famuyiwa, so they have a pretty tight niche relationship there. She's also directed an episode of The Morning Show on Apple TV, and 2 episodes of American Crime Story. So maybe there's going to be some crime, some pillaging and stuff involved in this next episode that she's working on. So she's got a nice little loaded filmography there. Lee Isaac Chung, to take a look at his filmography. He is working on Twisters, that comes out in 2024. He worked on Minari in 2020. And a whole bunch of, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. I apologize if I'm not sounding correct here, but I believe most of the films he worked on are foreign films, which is exciting. Like that aspect, bringing that into The Mandalorian is very, very cool. He's been in a bunch of like the film festivals and nominated in those, so that's exciting for that aspect of what's going to be new in The Mandalorian. Peter Ramsey, this will get you very excited. So, like I mentioned, he directed DreamWorks' Rise of the Guardians in 2012, and he was the co-director of Sony Picture Animation's 2018 Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
Oh, okay. Yes, that does get me extremely excited. Excited.
He is also going to be the director of Ahsoka. So maybe that episode that he's working on, Ahsoka's going to come through. So that's very exciting to. He was also a storyboard artist on 1989's A Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child, 1990's Predator 2, 1995's Mortal Kombat, 1996's Eye for an Eye, Independence Day in 1996, 1997 Men in Black, 1998 Godzilla. He worked on Fight Club as a storyboard artist. Castaway in 2000, 2000's How the Grinch Stole Christmas, Panic Room in 2002, Spartan in 2004, Shark Tale in 2004, Shrek the Third in 2007, The Penguins of Madagascar. He also worked on 2018's A Wrinkle in Time and 2016's Sausage Party. So he's got so many
that was a
bangers,
classic.
so many
Yeah.
bangers on his list. He was also an
His
illustrator
resume
for
stacked.
Batman Forever in 1995. So like he's worked on a number of things. Lots of horror, lots of just like mischievousness. So that's going to be an interesting episode to keep an eye on for sure. And that will be episode 5. So kind of like that mid-season point and kind of like that turning into the climax, which will be very fun. I'm excited for just like the outlook of this season too, and where it's more than likely going to take us, and like how it's going to effectively just like drive the Mandalorian as a product forward in the Star Wars universe.
For sure. No.
So Keith, as we always do, we give a grading for every episode, every show. We'll be getting Keith's scores as a whole. If he's not on the episode since this is episode 1, we got to include you in every single episode for your scores.
I'm down
to
with
get
it.
that proper scoring. So Keith, your score for episode 1 of season 3, technically chapter 17 of The Mandalorian, The Apostate.
I am going to go with... Now, I know we don't give regular numbers, so I'm going to go
give
with
rookie scores around these parts.
No. I'm going to go with a 7.8. Now, is that lower? Is that right there?
I think it's close to me. It's like in that range. I'm gonna give it an 8.3, kind of giving it on like that school rating scale. I thought it was a solid B- episode for like an opening premiere type of episode. Laid the groundwork, did what it was supposed to do, and I did watch a non-spoiler like instant reaction, because apparently they did a like a theater preview premiere of The Mandalorian. So a lot of like the big content creators, big, people who cover this kind of stuff on the internet were invited. They said episode 1 and episode 2 paired together is like everything you could ever want from The Mandalorian. So that's also very exciting to look forward to next week. Knowing that this episode is kind of like a tandem episode almost. So that's exciting. So like watch them together and see how they pair. But our scores together, 8.3, 7.8, added together, divided by 2, it's 8.05, which rounds up in our book to 8.1 right in it. It's a solid start for The Mandalorian. We have been on banger after banger after banger of shows. It's going to continue on this episode here. So I'm going to kick it over to our Poker Face episode 4 breakdown with myself and Christian. So don't go anywhere. What is up, everybody? Welcome into our Poker Face segment of this episode of StreamerSZN. It's brought to you by our awesome partners over at W Energy. W's going to war on big energy, and they've been keeping us energized throughout this probably last like 2 months now. They've been on board with us, which is awesome. They are 0 calories, 0 sugar, 0 maltodextrin fillers, no artificial colors, and they've got that patented neuro factor in their ingredients, which has been clinically tested to improve brain performance and cognitiveness by 143%. You guys can support us. You can support W going to war on big energy by going to w.gg and use code underground for 10% off any and all orders. GG. And GG, haters. I've been really on a kick with the Beach and Peach flavor, and I also have the Dragonade, which is dragon fruit and strawberry lemonade. Right now, a lot of their flavors are on pre-sale. Pre-orders, if you pre-order right now, you'll be first in line to receive your order when it's back in stock. So go to w.gg, load up, and use code underground for 10% off any order. Christian Poker Face episode 4, Rest in Metal. It's the 4th episode. Christine Boylan wrote this episode, and you were correct. The less than an hour runtime caught up to me. 47-minute runtime on this episode. I like this one a lot. It's super fun.
So
I'm a big band person, as is you are.
As someone who is up to date on Poker Face, and you're the one who's playing catch up, you're gonna love this past week's episode because it's, even though it wasn't written by Rian Johnson, it kind of feels like an allegory for him in Star Wars.
Interesting.
And do you know what Mad God is?
No.
So it's this movie on Shudder, which is this horror streaming thing.
Mm-hmm. Been trying to get them to sponsor us.
It's a stop motion movie. Stop motion, and it's like stop motion horror. And a character is creating something that feels very heavily inspired by Mad God.
Interesting.
So it's a very interesting episode where it's like we have Phil Tippett and we have Kathleen Kennedy pseudo represented in this episode. But back to Rest in Metal.
Yeah, Rest in Metal. Christian, do you want to hit the spoiler warning sound effect?
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a spoiler warning. This is your time to press pause, go to Peacock, watch the episode in question, then come back and listen to us attempt to talk like Charlie Kane, except we haven't smoked 15 packs a day for 5 years.
So now an employee at Big Box Hardware Store, Ruby Ruin, vocalist of the early 2000s one-hit wonder heavy metal band Doxology with 3 X's. That's how you know it's heavy metal. Recruits Gavin, played by Nicholas Cirillo, as a temporary drummer for a summer tour. She, guitarist Al, played by John Darnielle, and bassist Eski, played by G.K. Ume, attempt to write a song recapturing the success of their hit song Staplehead. When I heard the name of the song, I was like, what the hell is going on here?
It's so metal. It's so metal.
It's so metal. But they are constantly frustrated by Gavin's incessant drumming and distractible personality. During a performance, Gavin is slapped by Ruby for stealing her scream note, and Ruby apologizes later at the hotel. And Gavin then performs a song as he has drafted called Sucker Punch to the band members. Stunned by the song's hit quality and embittered that the royalties from Staplehead go to their previous drummer, the band conspires to steal the song from him, firing their roadie Deuteronomy, played by Chuck Cooper, and rigging Gavin's amplifier to electrocute him during the climactic scream of Staplehead. They then rewrite and sign the lyrics and burn Gavin's original lyric sheet. A few days prior, Ruby hires Charlie, our good pal Natasha Lyonne, as the band's merch seller / roadie. She begins to bond with Gavin, noticing that he never wears shoes. He lets them dogs out, no leash. He's got that dog in him. Has a camera pointed at his kick drum and writes lyrics spontaneously based on his surroundings. After the stapler incident, she scolds Ruby for slapping Gavin, prompting her to apologize, and the next day she witnesses Gavin's death on stage after taking a Polaroid of the climactic moment. Charlie picks up on Ruby's lie when she says that the band, quote, the band got lucky to the coroner who rules Gavin's death as an equipment malfunction. While the band records Gavin's song the next day at a studio in Kenosha, Wisconsin, Charlie meets a woman, Emily Yoshida portrays this person, who hosts a true crime podcast named Murder Girl. We love when the podcasts show up on the screen. Unfortunately, StreamerSZN was not listed there. Rian Johnson, what gives?
Come on, man.
Come on. We're talking about your show. We talked about your movie. Get us on the next episode. The band then arrives in Milwaukee, where they will open for a band named Krampus. Immediately just think of the Christmas movie.
Let's be before you on that, can we talk about the whole Krampus internet bit?
Yes, let's do it.
Would 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 you run or would you punch it like Charlie?
Ooh. That's a good question. I think I punch in that instance. Like if I'm putting myself in those shoes, I think I punch.
When it comes to specifically the situation Charlie was in, I'd probably punch or kick just out of in instinct. But if it was like jumping out of a bush, I'm like, peace out, motherfucker.
Later. So while cleaning her car, Charlie realizes that the lyrics to Sucker Punch correspond to advertising slogans on items in Gavin's pockets. And when questioned by Charlie, Ruby admits that Gavin wrote the song, but insists that she needs a new hit in her career. Questioning Deuteronomy, Charlie learns that modern amps usually have 3 prongs as a safety measure. Finding Gavin's amp in the trailer, she notices that it has 3 prongs, and an older, unsafe model was used on stage when Gavin was murdered. Charlie overhears Al practicing a new song titled "You Can't Unmurder Someone." Rolls right off the tongue. She voices her suspicions of Al to Ruby, who dismisses it. And finally, Charlie uses Gavin's footwork camera to confirm that the band wore thick-soled Doc Martens during the performance to avoid electrocution. And she confronts the band about killing Gavin, but Ruby fires her. Charlie learns that a video of her punching Krampus's lead singer has gone viral. Cliff, played by Benjamin Bratt, suddenly appears and chases her. She escapes into the concert and succeeds in escaping, and a sucker punch leads to renewed interest in doxology. The members prepare to sign a recording contract. However, a recording executive reveals that the rhythm track to Sucker Punch, which the band failed to modify from Gavin's original draft, is stolen from the theme song for the sitcom Benson, resulting in a severe copyright infringement. Murder Girl, tipped off by Charlie, bases her next episode on doxology's crimes. I always get giddy when I see podcasts in a show, because it's like, look at us. We finally made it to the big screen.
Probably the thing that made me kind of happy the most was that we get the whole internet bit tease earlier, and how viral the Krampus thing goes. It then happens to Charlie, and you immediately go, I wonder if it makes its way to Benjamin Bratt.
Yeah, I like how last week it kind of took a break from the underlying episodic plot that's been laid out since episode 1, and then it comes right back this week and is like, hey, how you doing? I really liked this episode. I thought it was really well put together. I love the band and music aspect of it. It was a different, once again, another solid murder mystery of the week in a different light that you wouldn't expect. And we got more of that underlying, plot that is going to continue. And I thought this episode was really, really good.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun with it. It's the floor on all these episodes is so high. It's so high. Yeah. And that's something you can't say for that many shows today. For something to have a floor this high.
According to the AV Club's Solani Gajar, Rest in Metal received extremely positive reviews from critics. And Gajar gave the episode an A- grade and wrote, "How often can Charlie find herself in a situation where a stranger she meets ends up 6 feet into the ground? But it's still early into the show, so I'm not complaining. The Columbo-esque gimmick is paying off richly. I'm thrilled there are 6 more episodes of Charlie finding herself in a mess she has to dig herself out of." I think that plays into our mindset on not only this episode, but the show, from what we've reviewed so far, and I'm sure what you've seen, as a whole from Poker Face. to a T.
Yeah, like it's the it, as as I said on the last part, just murder mystery of the week done well is is a very good show. But what the show does well, and I'll say this every week, it has the slow linear storyline just burning underneath everything, and this is kind of the last episode for a little bit where that linear nature truly has a effect, because as someone who just watched episode 8 or 9, I don't remember at this point, Benjamin Bratt's kind of MIA, so it'll be interesting to see upon his return how things go.
Yeah, I'm excited to keep diving into this week by week and seeing where things go. But Christian, your score for Poker Face episode 4?
8.3.
Yeah, I'm close to that ballpark. I think I'm gonna give it an 8.6. So for the people at home with the quick math, intact 8.6 plus 8.3 is a solid 16.9, almost nice. That's a 1 nice, which rounds up to from 8.45 to an 8.5. 8.5. The show continues to impress. We've been on a roll with the solid shows so far in 2023. So excited to see what our list looks like. There's way more to come, especially in the month of March. We're going to feel like John Rothstein by the time March is over, because this is March for us. But hopefully we'll be back all together in a try box next week, breaking all things down for you guys. But we're going to kick it back to myself and Dylan to dive into streaming platform multiverse news and notes. Christian, ironic that we reviewed episode 4 and you're going to a concert. Who are we seeing?
Do you know who first to 11 is?
First to, it sounds familiar.
So they are this group on YouTube who do a bunch of covers and stuff.
First to 11.
Yes. They mainly do rock covers and stuff. It's really fun.
Oh, sweet. They're almost kind of local. They're from Erie, Pennsylvania.
Yeah. They're on a little mini tour, so
Nice. What venue?
Warehouse on Watts.
Okay.
So by the Med.
That'll be sweet.
Yeah.
So there it is. Poker Face episode 4. Sit tight, and we'll be back with the streaming platform multiverse news and notes real quick. What's up, everybody? I know this week's episode was kind of pieced together. We had a lot of guest hosts, Christian and I recording separately. Apologies for kind of a pieced together thing, but we made it work. But no news and notes segment this week. Just a lot going on, and with the mishmash of piecing this episode together, it kind of didn't cross our minds to get that fully recorded. But that segment will be back next week. But until then, make sure you guys are following us at StreamerSZN on Twitter and Instagram and Letterboxd. Follow me on Twitter at KBIZZL311. Follow Christian at TheWiz_PHI. Subscribe to the podcast feed, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Leave a 5-star rating and review. It does go a long way for helping the show continue to grow, helps more people find this bad boy, and helps us take StreamerSZN to that next level here in 2023 and beyond. And of course, subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel, where as I'm recording this right now, we have 401 subscribers on the YouTube channel, 99 away from 500. Let's keep that thing rolling. Let's get more people subscribed to the show on YouTube, youtube.com/@UndergroundSportsPhiladelphia. And this has been another edition of StreamerSZN, the exclusive streaming platform, TV and movie podcast on the Underground Sports Philadelphia Podcast Network. Hopefully everything is back to normal next week, and we're back, all systems go, status quo, show back to normal. But until then, I'm your boy KB. For Christian, for Russ, and for Keith, big thank you to those guys for hopping on this week to fill in for Dylan. But until next week, I am getting the heck up out of here because this is the way.